Good morning. Welcome and thank you for joining us at our virtual broadcast here at First Unitarian Church of Toledo. We just have a couple of announcements today. As always, if you would like to stay updated on the life of the church while we are distant and soon to be together again, please make sure you are following our UUFYI. If you'd like to click to be involved and make sure you're on that mailing list, you can find that in the YouTube description box. There you'll see things like handbell rehearsals coming up. Today we have one at 1 o'clock, and then we will begin our weekly handbell Sundays at 1 through the month of November. All are welcome. Please contact me if you would like to sign up at musicdirector@uutoledo.org. We also have our Christmas poinsettia sale starting now, going through November 8th. We have links to order, but flowers will be available for pickup at the church Tuesday, December 21st. Again, that sale ends November 8th. All flowers will be donated for the altar for Christmas Eve service and donated to the nursing home on Christmas Eve. With that, we begin our service with these opening words by Burton D. Carley. We gather on this Sabbath morn to worship in spirit and truth, to raise a joyful noise to the eternal mystery, to reconfirm our covenant, to seek wisdom in love, to strengthen our commitment to the common good. We come from many paths to explore that which is hidden, to consider the ways of our hearts, to confess how we have stumbled, and to heal what is broken. We assemble in the effort to quicken our compassion and mercy, to deepen our understanding, to renew our courage, to remember who we are. Thus do we celebrate the grace and gift of life and practice our faith to the great glory of the Spirit.
Good morning. We give thanks for the earth we are on at First Unitarian Church of Toledo and to the people who are here before us. We are thankful to the people of the Miami, the Peoria, and the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and to others for our presence here. Our chalice lighting this morning was written by Jennifer Grayson and is entitled Drawn Together. We come together every week, bound not by a creed or by a mutual desire to please one God or many gods, yet we are drawn together by a belief that how we are in the world, who we are together, matters. We light this chalice together in the knowledge that love, not fear, can change this world. Please join me in our weekly covenant. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Our Life of Wonder prompt today are words by Carl Jung. If our religion is based on salvation, our chief emotions will be fear and trembling. If our religion is based on wonder, our chief emotion will be gratitude. With that, we have this opening hymn, number 15, The Lone Wild Bird.
In
Our story today is from the UU Tapestry of Faith curriculum. It's a great one for kids and adults alike. It's Noah and the Rainbow Covenant. You might have heard the story of Noah and the flood from the Hebrew Testament of the Bible. It goes something like this. Did you ever make such a mess of your homework or a drawing or a painting that you just got so frustrated you wanted to crumple up the whole thing and throw it away? Perhaps that's how God was feeling. Centuries after creating the world, God looked around in frustration. I poured my heart and soul into making this wonderful world full of people and animals and plants, especially those wonderfully colorful birds, cardinals and goldfinches and robins. But the whole thing is just a mess. People! What was I thinking? They lie, they cheat, they steal, they murder. There's barely a decent one in the whole bunch. Dang it all, I should just start over, erase the whole mess and start from scratch. Yep, I think that's just what I'll do. God took a look around to make sure that there were not, in fact, any decent people about to be destroyed. And it turned out that God found one good, kind, clean living family, the family of a man named Noah. And so God went to Noah and said, "This world is just plain no good, and I'm planning to get rid of all of the people except you and your family. So this is what you have to do. Build a really big boat, big enough for not only you and your family, but also a pair of every kind of animal there is. I'll give you time, but you better get on it because it's going to rain. I'm going to rain this whole place out, and anyone who isn't on the boat is going to drown." I imagine Noah had a hard time believing his ears, but he gathered up his family and told them what he'd heard. They no doubt had a hard time believing Noah, but they trusted him, and so some of the family set about building the boat, called an ark, while others went and gathered up animals. Of course, everybody else thought Noah was just plain nuts for building this ginormous boat and filling it with animals. But Noah and his family just kept right on working. And eventually, the rain came. It rained and rained like no rain you ever saw. It was as if the sky was full of millions of fire hydrants, all opened at once. And the water rose higher and higher and covered the land, and the giant boat, full of animals and Noah's family, gently rose with the water. For days and days and nights, the rain went on until, finally, it just stopped. The people ran to the windows of the ark and were astonished to see blue sky and blue water, and nothing else, just water and sky. There was nowhere to go and nothing to do, so they waited and waited. Finally, Noah sent a raven out to fly around and look for land, but it came back tired, for there was nowhere to rest. Noah waited a week. Then he sent out a dove to fly around and look for land, but it just came back tired too. So he brought the dove back in, waited another week, and sent it out again. This time, the dove came back with a twig from an olive tree in its beak. It had found land. Eventually, the water backed off enough for Noah to see the ark had come to rest on the top of a mountain, and there was land all around them. Maybe not dry land, probably wet and mushy land, but land all the same. Finally, the people and the animals were able to leave the crowded, smelly ark and touch the earth. They were all overcome with gladness, and Noah made an altar to thank God for bringing them to safety. "Welcome home," said God. "I will make a deal with you, a promise, a covenant. My covenant is with all the beings of the earth, not just the people. You go forth and populate the earth and fill it again with all your kind. And I promise never to flood the earth again. and as a sign of my covenant with you, I will put a rainbow in the clouds. And every time you see a rainbow, it will remind you of our covenant to create and preserve life.
May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be whole. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be whole. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be whole.
I invite you now to find a comfortable position and join me for this time of meditation, contemplation, and prayer. I'll share this prayer for the journey from Krista Taves, and following that, we'll have a minute of silence. Spirit of life and love, God of grace and mercy, source of all things that changes us as we cannot change ourselves. We gather this morning as a covenanted community of spiritual seekers, coming together in a rainbow of diversity, united by our conviction that the wounds of this world can be healed through compassion, forgiveness, acceptance, and courage. And by healing, we do not mean restored to some mythical original purity, but brought to a new place with greater wisdom, wholeness, and liberation than could have been envisioned before. This community is on a journey, and yet in truth, we know that each one of us is on a journey, and all our journeys place us before forks in the road. These places ask us to make choices, saying yes to some things, saying no to others. Grieving in what we must leave behind, rejoicing in the blessings, often unexpected, that come our way. In these journeys, some will choose to walk with us, and some will choose another path. Some will pause for a while, withdrawing into their own places of transformation where we cannot follow. Some of these partings happen gently and lovingly, others with judgment and disappointment. It is our calling to accept these things as a testament to our strength and our fragility, and to trust in the process even as we fear the unknown. Even as whispers of beloved memories draw us deep into our own hearts, even when we see more clearly where we have come from than where we are going. The journey asks us to keep walking. Let us enter into a time of communal silence for the individual prayers and meditations of our hearts. Spirit of life, we ask for patience, we ask for understanding, we ask for compassion, we ask for hope and gratitude, so that we may welcome our collective and individual journeys with open hearts, open minds, and open hands. Please join me for a minute of silence.
Spirit of life, come to me. Sing in my heart all the strength of compassion. Blow wind, rise in the sea. Giving life the shape of justice, rose holy rose, wings free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Today's reading was written by Emma Merchant when she was a youth at the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Columbus, Ohio. I Choose You, I Am Here by Emma Merchant. I have never been particularly attached to the idea of family. Do you know the Swiss Family Robinson? It's the story of how a family worked together and survived. It never reached beyond a story for me. It never occurred to me that some people actually felt this way towards their bloodline, that the lineage was sacred. To me, it always seemed that blood could be spilled. I have always felt that when people identify family as something important and universal, what they are truly addressing is unconditional love. This is not to say that I hate the idea of family, but I've always been more enchanted by the idea of chosen family. The thought that we are each making a choice to be here in this family, in this community, it's powerful. We have actively chosen to come and be here. I'm not stuck with you because you're my cousin and I'm not allowed to be rude. I could leave if I wanted to, but I don't because of the way that we have each nurtured this community. I choose to be stuck with you for better and for worse. And we have continuously made this choice over and over again. Every time we worship, every time we donate our time and energy, every time we clasp hands in meditation is a promise. I am here for you. The DNA of this community may be metaphorical, but it exists within me. The words covenant and right relation are second nature, placed on my tongue almost since birth, but they are words that I have chosen to bring into my life. My heart beats with the blood of this church, pounding out, I choose you. I am here. This is a safe space, a place of learning, a place of compassion, a space created by the very idea of love. We choose to build a sanctuary because we choose to be together. There is no use for a church of people who hate each other or a church of ghosts. We make the choice to stay stuck together even when we don't want to be in the same room. But we always come back to the table because we choose to be together. Through thick and thin, we have chosen love. And in hard times, struggling times, times that we face every day, we come together even closer. We make the choice to listen to each other. We make the choice to pick each other up, and we make the choice to love each other. We have built this community with our commitment to that love. We all may have many different reasons for being here, but I like to think that we all have one common reason for being here: love. Over everything else, we are here because we are the people who choose love. We do not have a bloodline, but we have a deep, unconditional love that runs through us all. We choose that love. We choose each other. Our hearts echo, I choose you. I am here. I am here. I am here.
In 2001, the Red River Unitarian Universalist Church in Denison, Texas, was denied tax-exempt status by the Texas Comptroller, who maintained that this congregation was not really a religious organization because it does not have one system of belief. The Comptroller's attorney defended the decision, saying, for any organization to qualify as a religion, members must have simply a belief in God or gods or a higher power. I felt indignant when I read this article and had to find out more. The attorney went on to explain, we have got to apply a test and use some objective standards. We're not using the test to deny the exemptions for a particular group because we don't like them or do like them. I accepted that he had good intent, but concluded that the Texas officials were poorly informed. Perhaps if they knew that 4 U.S. presidents can be counted as Unitarians, including John Adams, John Quincy Adams, Millard Fillmore, and William Howard Taft, perhaps they might have accepted Unitarianism as a legitimate religion. I realize that many people mistakenly interpret our lack of a required creed to mean that we just believe anything and everything. In our fourth principle, we covenant to affirm and promote the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We are each free to search for answers because we are not bound by an ecclesiastical authority or tradition. However, we are also responsible for how our answers inspire us to behave and live together. So to characterize UUs as simply believing anything ignores half of our fourth principle. Fortunately, a lower court and the Texas Supreme Court both ruled against the comptroller's decision. The appeals court opinion said that the comptroller's test fails to include the whole range of belief systems that may, in our diverse and pluralistic society, merit the First Amendment protection. Nevertheless, the Red River UU case raises questions. If we agree that churches should be exempt from taxes, then how do we define what constitutes a church? What standards can be applied to prevent fraudulent claims? Since we are indeed participating in a church service this morning, I'll leave those legal questions to others. Instead, I'll focus on theological questions such as, since we don't have a common creed or core beliefs, what binds us together? What makes Unitarian Universalism a religious organization? The word religion came into the English language around 1200 in the Common Era from Old French. The French word had in turn come from Classical Latin. Although the etymology is a bit murky that far back in time, many scholars maintain that the original Latin root was religare, which meant to bind fast or bind again, as in physically bind together. During the long, slow transition from Latin to French to English, the original literal meaning of religare transformed to become a metaphorical reference. People who joined monasteries or convents were people who vowed to live according to the rules of their order. These people were called religious for their binding agreements. Although religion has taken on additional connotations since then, it still includes an element of life bound by vows. So what binds UUs together? Every Sunday, this congregation recites, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. These three phrases bind us together. These three phrases are our great covenant. They do not say anything about our beliefs regarding the existence or nature of God. They are not a creed or a statement of faith. Rather, these phrases simply state how we aspire to be with each other, in peace, in love, and in assistance. In addition to this familiar covenant, our congregation created a second, longer covenant during the ministerial transition process back in 2015-2016. Reverend Renee Rohetsky was our primary contact from the UUA, and she facilitated a large group in Fellowship Hall during which we brainstormed concepts, words, and phrases. Then somehow, magically, Renee crafted those raw materials into a final product, which the attendees overwhelmingly voted to approve. This behavioral covenant is still posted outside Fellowship Hall on one of the bulletin boards. During the past 5 to 6 years, some people have left our congregation and some new people have joined this church. Although the 2015 behavioral covenant may be presented as a given to new members, the current membership has the power and the responsibility to participate in reviewing and renewing it. Covenants are endemic in Unitarian Universalism. RE classes for younger children often create a covenant during the first session. It may contain statements like the Golden Rule: treat others the way you want to be treated. Safe bodies, hands to our own bodies, ask to hug a friend. Programs for teenagers in our congregation and in regional and national UU events often have covenants as well. listen without interruption, honor group confidentiality, kuyads, which stands for clean up your own damn stuff. Although these covenants may use simple language or emphatic curse words, the principles expressed apply to all ages. Covenants are found at the highest levels of Unitarian Universalism. The current UUA Board of Trustees has a lengthy 6-point covenant, as well as a short-form covenant, which goes, "We light this chalice to remind ourselves that we are human, and we are both lifted and limited by our humanity. May we be kind, compassionate, and make room for growth, both within ourselves and within this group. Here we practice governance with love." The UUA bylaws have a covenantal structure, at least in section 2, which starts out, "We, the congregations of the UUA, covenant to affirm and promote." This statement is then followed by our 7 principles and our 6 sources of inspiration. In our bylaws, in our UUA bylaws, the pronoun "we" refers to UU congregations. Thus, as a congregation, we are in covenant with other congregations, such as our friends and neighbors at the Maumee Valley congregation. We are also in covenant with the national organization and with Reverend Sunshine Wolf, our current primary contact from the Central East region of the UUA. As member congregations, we have agreed to collaborate with and support other congregations, to work for agreement on issues of internal governance, and to use our collective strength to advocate for justice, equity, and inclusion in the wider society. The UUA covenant has changed only half a dozen times since 1961. The most recent change took place in 2017, led by Reverend Jamie Yandel from our congregation. In that case, the congregational delegates to GA voted to change the language in the second source from words and deeds of prophetic men and women to the more inclusive words and deeds of prophetic people. To prevent our covenant from becoming an ossified creed, the UUA bylaws specify that we must regularly review and update our principles and purposes. The Article 2 Study Commission is currently in the process of reviewing several possible changes, including the proposed 8th principle. They will present their recommendation to the General Assembly in 2023 in Pittsburgh. We, the member congregations, will then vote to approve or reject changes to our covenant. The covenants described so far were created by active participation of the current members of those groups. Since membership in those groups changes year after year, the details of those covenants may change as well. On the other hand, some covenants are static or change very slowly. When our building reopens, I encourage you to go into the Louisa May Alcott room and look for the Blake Covenant on the wall. The painting, also shown on today's order of service, was created by member and artist Ann Strickler. This covenant is used in many UU congregations around the country. The first few lines of the Blake Covenant may sound archaic, which is not surprising since it was written in the 1890s. However, the last 3 lines seem almost timeless, as they are identical to the last few lines of our weekly covenant. The Reverend James Vila Blake wrote this covenant when he was minister at the First Unitarian Church of Evanston, Illinois. That congregation has recited it every Sunday for over 120 years. Covenants have a long history in Judaism and Christianity. Theologians have identified as many as 7 covenants in the Bible. First, as we heard in the story, God made a covenant with Noah. Then, 10 generations later, God made a covenant with Abraham, in which God revealed that a great nation will be born from Abraham's seed. As a sign of his part in the covenant, Abraham circumcised himself and all the male members of his household. The most famous Old Testament covenant is probably the Mosaic Covenant. In the story of Exodus, Moses led the Jews out of bondage in Egypt. When they reached Sinai, God handed down 617 behavioral laws to the Jewish people, including dietary regulations, observance of the Sabbath, hospitality to strangers, care for widows and orphans, and many others. God also listed 3 festivals to be celebrated each year, gave the 10 Commandments to Moses, and committed to lead them to the promised land known as Canaan. In short, if the people kept the covenant, then God would protect and guide them. When Moses descended from that foggy mountaintop, he led the people in a ritual to pledge their support. Moses took ox blood, sprinkled half of it upon the altar, which symbolized Jehovah, and sprinkled the other half upon lucky representatives of the people. By sprinkling of both the altar and the people, the 2 parties to the covenant were made partakers of one and the same blood. This practice may seem odd to us, but apparently similar rites were common throughout the Near East and were regarded as adding force and sacredness to an agreement. Sealing the Mosaic covenant with blood provides important context for the next covenant. When Christianity emerged from Judaism, a new covenant was established, a covenant of grace between God and humanity. The covenant was also sealed by a sacrifice, namely the crucifixion of Jesus. In the gospel stories of the Last Supper, Jesus passed around a wine cup saying, "Drink ye all of it, for this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many unto remission of sins." As knowledgeable Jews, Jesus and his disciples were certainly familiar with the significance of the blood sacrifice in the covenanting ceremony led by Moses. During the Protestant Reformation, the covenantal concept spread among Reformed groups in Germany, the Netherlands, Scotland, and England. And the colonial immigrants brought that theology to New England, where it was very influential. In 1629, the Puritans who settled Salem, north of the future Boston settlement, established their first covenant. "We covenant with the Lord and one another, and do bind ourselves in the presence of God to walk together in all his ways." The biblical covenants were handed down from God and thus could be described as vertical. The Puritans added a horizontal component when they said, "one with another to walk together." This simple metaphor for covenant reappears in later Puritan writings. Our UU covenants are horizontal. We create and recreate our covenants amongst us. Our obligation to keep our covenants comes from our personal commitment and responsibility. There are at least 3 pitfalls associated with covenants. First, as UUs, we have a history of being heretical and anti-authoritarian. However, trust is critical to a covenant. Part of being in a covenant is to assume good intent within that group, to trust those you have chosen to walk with. Secondly, we don't want our covenants to become rules with legalistic penalties. If someone breaks covenant, we should not call them out. Rather, we should call them back in. If covenant means that we are walking together, then dragging someone along who doesn't want to walk with us might just wear out both parties. We covenant to help each other, not to coerce one another. And thirdly, our covenants need to be inclusive. The Puritan immigrants and other colonial settlers interpreted the biblical covenants to mean that the land they had arrived in and its resources were theirs to take if they remained in covenant with God. Unfortunately, this narrow understanding did not encompass the indigenous peoples of this land or the enslaved Africans or their descendants. From our modern perspective, the Puritans had another flaw. They also supported state funding of a state-established church. Thank goodness we now live in a country where the state does not control, endorse, or directly support one religion or denomination. We have religious freedom, which means we are solely responsible for supporting our church and our national association. Our annual stewardship campaign started last week. I ask you to commit to support the financial needs of this church and that you do so in a responsible way. To paraphrase Reverend Renee Rahutsky, our covenants are promises to one another about how we are going to walk together as we do our ministry in the world. Our pledge cards are promises about how we will fund that ministry. Be assured, though, that after you submit your pledge, there will be no blood involved. On the other hand, we don't have the power to seal your financial commitment with a rainbow. Since we are a church, we can bless your contributions with financial statements confirming the tax-deductible amount. And we hope that you will find satisfaction in supporting this faith community as we journey together. We have seen that covenants have a long history in Judaism and Christianity, and that covenants, which have been created by group members and freely embraced, are a critical component to describing Unitarian Universalism as a religious organization. In closing, let us journey together in covenant with greater wisdom, mindfulness, and inclusiveness than we have previously envisioned. Blessed be, and amen.
And as we come to our time of offering, I would encourage you, if you haven't had a chance to look at uutoledo.org, there is a link in the YouTube description box. There is a lot more information there when you look at our giving page about ways to be involved if you'd like to get an annual pledge form. I also recently was looking through the UUA Fair Share Guide. It's a great resource if you've never been a pledging member to a congregation like this to kind of see what might be a good starting point for you and your family. Again, that's uutoledo.org. You can donate online, or you can always reach us at 3205 Glendale Avenue. Your support is tremendously appreciated. Next week, we will see you again on YouTube. We will have our Spiritual Adventures Forum at 9:45 via Zoom, and then our service at 11. I have these closing words by Eric Williams. May you be filled. May you be filled with the blessings of this covenanted community. May you carry them with you as you depart from here. May you discover the places in the world where these blessings are needed. May you have the courage to share them. May there be an open place within you to receive the blessings of the people whom you will meet along the way.
As Mickey extinguishes the flame, I'll share The Work We Share by Krista Taves. It is our work, shared with each other in covenant, that creates and sustains this beloved community. We extinguish this chalice, but its light lives on in the directions we have chosen today. The light of this faith lives on in us, together, in our hearts, minds, bodies, and spirits. Amen, and blessed be.